Cornflakes are as basic as you can get when it comes to the world of breakfast cereal. So you'd think that the creation and consumption of a bland cereal would be a pretty bland story. Well, you'd be completely wrong, because it is absolutely insane. Mainly due to the fact that if this channel was monetized, I can almost guarantee that this video would be instantly demonetized. So yeah, let's choke the chicken, folks. Hello! Welcome to Brainspill, the laziest show on the internet. My name is Tank, and yes, we are about to talk about a story which is stranger than fiction. This is the story of how Kellogg's cornflakes came to be. Our story starts in the most unlikely of places, the Battle Creek Sanitarium in Michigan in the mid-1800s, where a man called Dr. John Harvey Kellogg worked as the superintendent and director of that facility. The sanitarium was a place to treat those with special conditions, almost like upper-class hotels or retreats, to get people better from whatever ailments plagued their lives. Originally, the Western Health Reform Institute was part of a pioneering effort based on health principles advocated by the Seventh-day Adventist Church for the more affluent people amongst us. John himself was a follower of something called the Health Reform, or something called the Clean Living Doctrine, which is basically living a clean and healthy lifestyle as far as you can. John even described the sanitarium system as a composite psychological method of compromising hydrotherapy, phototherapy, thermotherapy, electrotherapy, mechanotherapy, physical culture, cold air cure, eugenics, and health training. All of these therapies, I'm sure, are less than ethical these days, but this was in the 1800s. He promoted the idea that the body was a temple, and that you should be making lifestyle choices in order to keep yourself clean and absolved of anything bad, which basically means that a lot of things in life you should pretty much cut out. This way of thinking basically meant that people should try and avoid tobacco, alcohol, caffeine, meats, sugar, anything of the sort that is bad for you and your health. Which, to be honest, for all of those things, I can understand. And, if you cut those things out of your life, I'm sure that you will find a large benefit improvement to your life and your diet. There was one other thing, however, that he also felt needed to be abolished from life in order for you to be living this clean living movement, and that was sexual activity. Yeah, that's the direction we're going with today when we're talking about Kellogg's cereal. That last one in particular was a big problem in John's eyes. He believed that any sex outside of procreation was against nature and purity of all kinds. This included all types of sexualized pleasure, including spanking the monkey, choking the chicken, rubbing one out, and so on and so on. He believed that those who deemed to be chronically addicted to masturbation needed to be treated, with suggestions not taken seriously by anyone in the mainstream medical profession at the time, or for now. His thoughts were pretty backwards, all things considered. Yes, this was all pretty wild, and if you don't believe me that the guy was so wild about this, he, by his own volition, circumcised himself at 37 years of age, because that's a completely normal thing to do. So yes, it's one thing to stop spanking the monkey, but it's another to actually have surgery down there to stop things from being possible, which it's taking things to a very, very big extreme, in my eyes. Look, at this point, if you're going to tell me that I need to change my entire diet to nothing but bland Kellogg's cornflakes to stop that from happening, then my God, give me a bowl right now. So yes, in brief, he thought that self-pleasure was deemed a violation of natural law, and that some action needed to be taken to curb this type of behaviour in the sanitarium, including the diet in which his patients ate, which was basically a bland and easily digestible food to match his purity beliefs. As part of this, he promoted the belief of something called Anaphoretic foods, essentially food that would nullify any urges of the libido. No sexy times for you, no, no, no. As part of his dietary experiments, he decided to start trying to go with some softer food that would be easier for people to chew and digest, something pretty bland. So he was looking into some alternatives that he could feed his patients in order to stop them from wanting to choke the chicken. As a result of this, he started to make some softer breakfast food. He developed a dough that was a mixture of wheat, oats and corn, which was baked at high temperatures for a long period of time. After it cooled, this would then be broken down into crumbs, which was basically then used and eaten in that form. It was originally trying to be marketed as a form of granola, but they couldn't call it granola because they already had granola in shops. Patients of the sanitarium were the only real users of the cereal at the time, to which it would soon become known as cornflakes. But this began to pick up popularity, particularly from people that were ex-patients of the hospital. Therefore, John Kellogg formed with his brother, Will Kellogg, the Sanitas Food Company to develop and market food products, chief amongst which was their cornflakes. So yes, two brothers. There is some disagreement about who actually discovered this as the food they were going to make, but I think due to the fact that John Kellogg himself pushed this ridiculous idea makes people think that he's the one that discovered it and did everything, but it was really between the both of them. Now, there was considerable disagreement over who actually discovered this, but the sheer fact that John marketed this for such a backwards reason is probably the reason that most people remember him, compared to perhaps some of his other family members who were also involved in the business and the assistance of creating this breakfast marvel. There were some differing stories on how the discovery was made, but the primary fact to keep in mind was that it was John Kellogg who accidentally discovered the key part of the process, the tempering of the flakes, the heating and cooling of the cereal, which was the key to the technique in creating their cornflakes. However, the cornflakes that we all know today isn't really that of John Kellogg's real direct involvement. It was mainly his brother, Will, that continued to develop and market the cornflakes into what we know today. This development involved changing wheat to corn and deciding to make it crunchier and tastier than it had been before. Will even decided to do the unthinkable, bearing in mind everything we just talked about, in which he proposed that their cornflakes should be sold and marketed to the public with sugar in it. A big no-no for Dr. Kellogg's ideas in, well, whatever the hell he believed in. Sugar was not the kind of food that you needed if you were going to live the healthy, clean living lifestyle. So, as you might imagine, he was adamantly against this suggestion. So yes, as you might imagine, John was not really particularly fond of this idea, probably due to the fact that sugar was the devil's food, which would bring out the horniness in all of us. Who knows? Either way, it wasn't smooth sailing between the two brothers. So in 1906, Will started his own company, the Battle Creek Toasted Cornflake Company, which propelled this into a decades-long feud between the two brothers. Will eventually made the company into the Kellogg's Company we know today, not without stiff resistance from his brother, who refused to allow him to use the Kellogg name, despite the fact that Will's surname was also Kellogg. So yeah, I really don't know how he thought he was going to get away with stopping him to do that, but there we are. John Harvey Kellogg was inducted into the National Inventors Hall of Fame in 2006 for the discovery of tempering and the invention of the first dried flaked breakfast cereal. As to whether this was a goal of his, who knows, but my guess is that it probably wasn't. Based on everything we know and what his goals and intentions were, that was probably the last thing he was worried about when considering the point of the entire purpose of this cereal in the first place. But ultimately, the ideas that Will had changed the industry and was made into the household brand and name that we know today. No thanks to the good doctor and his very, very odd beliefs, which almost ruined it for everybody. So, if his idea was to create America's next big breakfast cereal, then, well, he probably succeeded. But I think his goal was pretty much to basically stop anybody's sex drive, and to that, he failed miserably. If you guys like that video, here's another one just like it. I'll see you guys in the next video. Fantastic.